What's happening, sports fans? We welcome you to another installment of our sort of open forum for San Diego high school coaches to join us on a discussion of some uncomfortable but necessary conversations about what's going on in America and how coaches can talk to athletes, athletes can talk to each other, and we can all maybe actually take strides towards making San Diego a little bit better place. I am joined by some coaches that, well, we'll have them introduce themselves as we go around, but it's safe to say that at least 4 out of the 5, and I apologize for not knowing everybody's CIF championship ring, but 4 of the 5 people here have a championship ring. So you're definitely going to be talking to some quality opinions. Guys, I want to say thank you for joining us, because it's not easy for everybody to keep themselves a little bit rational and calm when they have these kinds of conversations, but it's necessary to have. Marlon Wells from Bishops, if you mind, we'll just start with you. You were talking a little bit about how you've had student athletes hitting you up in the last couple of days about what is going on and how to engage with all this. So what have some of your conversations been like?
Man, they've been awesome, man. And like I said, I'm proud of my kids, and I coach girls basketball. And my kids, they're really serious about this topic, and it hits home because they're seeing what's going on. I mean, we used to tell them what was happening. We could tell them about 1992 and stuff. And now you could Google and research all these things, and they're doing it, and they are really out there. They're on the corners making signs. They asked me to go downtown with them. I told them I wasn't athletic enough to go protest, man. They get to shooting them rubber bullets. I ain't getting away from none of that. But no, they like I said, I'm very proud of this young generation, man. I'm so proud of them. And so it's just an awesome thing.
Well, and you mentioned being athletic enough to dodge rubber bullets or anything thrown your way. I've seen the guns that Baz Fontenot carries around with him, literally when he's walking around in the basketball jersey. Baz from San Diego High School, you were a part of it on Saturday. Was the demographic, it feels like it was pretty young out there. I know that some of those protests were even organized by high school seniors. It feels like this is a chance to actually, kids are interested in this. So it's time for high school coaches to be a part of the solution and engage them.
Well, I went to 2 protests, one on Saturday in my school community and then one on Sunday in the community in which I live. And the one on Sunday in the community in which I live was organized by young people that had graduated from the East Lake neighborhood. And I was just so impressed by how organized and professional, how clear the messaging was. They had another high school basketball coach as the leadoff speaker, Don Dumas, started things off with a great message. And 1,000 people were there. And we started off at a park and we went on a march. But the message that they had at the beginning and the end of the march were some of the same things you've heard throughout all these demonstrations over the last, since the civil rights era. But they have some new edge to what they're talking about, and it's a sort of a fed up kind of a situation. These new concepts that we have to get our minds wrapped around that they're really comfortable with, like defunding of the police and real, dramatic radical change, and people are fed up. So while they organized it, the people that were there were the adults. There was educators, there was a bunch of coaches, there were families, it was a whole rainbow of people that were there. So it was really reflective of the community. But the fact that it took the youth to organize it, to be the organizing energy behind it and set the agenda, that wasn't kind of dancing around the issues at all. It wasn't there to make anybody feel necessarily comfortable. Boycotts and things of that sort, and it was very inspiring. Downtown was a little bit different, a little bit older, and it was a different vibe there, but it was still multicultural. Every race, every age group, every demographic was represented. So it's pretty neat that so many voices are speaking up this time as opposed to previously.
I was going to say, this feels a little different. I mean, this feels like something that is, maybe it's just a byproduct of everybody's able to be at home on their phones and really absorb all this. But it feels like the outrage went from, okay, we're specifically fighting the flag versus the protests to just a ton of outrage. Coach Carter, I was hoping you could kind of enlighten us a little bit. We spoke off air a little bit about how you're from Texas. So you grew up with a ton of this racism or hatred or whatever you want to label it as, I'll let you label it. But you grew up with a ton of this. You know how to deal with this a lot. You coach at Lincoln, so I'm sure that you have a lot of perception of what your life is like versus what it really is. Can you comment just kind of on what's going on and how and why maybe this feels a little different?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely grew up with a bunch of racism and hate towards Black people, people of color. I don't think you ever learn how to deal with it. Me personally, like you try to stay out the way. But I've always been one that's like, I ain't never back down to nobody, and I won't start now. But it's just like, you also got to be smart too. You also got to understand, like, ain't no coming back from getting shot and getting killed. You don't. That's one thing. Like my mom taught me a long time ago. Just trouble takes a second to get into and a lifetime to get out. So I kind of held that very close to me, and it was just like, having guns pulled on me for driving into my neighborhood by the police. Being at one of my friend's house, and his dad. We there for the prom, and his dad's like, if you, N-words come back on the property, I'm gonna blow your brains out, and they'll never find your body. Like that was, actually told us. So like, we just wait to like, wait, we'll see when we get back to school. We'll just see you Monday. It was a hurtful time, and and that was in 1998, 99 when that happened. So it's just like, you never get used to it. It sucks, because when you have kids, I have two boys. I have to make sure my boys know. I have I have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I'm a mentor of 160 kids of all different colors. It's never good explaining it to them, but you have to talk about it because it's real, and you don't want the worst phone call you can get is one of your kids been hurt by the police or, something has happened to them. That's never good. So growing up in Texas just magnified it, man. It was out there. It wasn't they can carry guns out there. They can do whatever they want to do. So it's never good.
I'm glad we have Coach Fierro on, and thank you very much for sharing that. But I'd like to sort of ask and probe. It seems like this isn't a public versus private school thing. It seems like this is pervasive to every layer and every level. So Coach Mario Fierro is joining us from Cathedral Catholic. He's part of the football program there. What has maybe been some of the internal or external conversations that have been kind of going on in your program?
Well, as soon as this, I think when stuff really started to get bad this last week after the murder of George Floyd, one of our coaches in our program, Coach Barry Winston, who I thought he was going to come in today, but I guess not. Maybe he's coming in tomorrow. Ran one of our weekly team meetings and had very courageous conversation with our entire varsity players and staff, and told his story as he's the only African American varsity staff member, coach on our staff, and Coach Doyle gave him the full reign to run the meeting, and he told some stories that, to be honest with you, they were so eye-opening to me. I'm a person of color, but I'm white, so I'm afforded that privilege that Caucasians, white people have, and it's a very interesting thing for me, because I'm 100% I'm from Mexican descent. My parents are both born in Mexico, but I don't look like what a typical Mexican would look like in the eyes of someone that would have a prejudicial idea, if that makes sense, if everybody can understand what I'm talking about. So I've grown up without having to worry about getting pulled over by the police and fearing for my life and things like that. So hearing Coach Barry say these things, and I don't want to speak for him, but for me, all it did was confirm what I already believed in, is that there is a significant divide in how certain people are treated in this country. And anyone that tries to deny it is really just has their eyes closed or doesn't want to accept it because it makes them uncomfortable. I was really I guess this is a bad thing to be upset about, but I was actually upset that we couldn't be in school so that I could discuss these things with my history classes and really ask these kids really difficult questions, because we've kind of towed the line on certain things. I don't want to say towed the line, but approached conversations and having these uncomfortable conversations. But a classroom, and really teaching sophomores and juniors and freshmen, really more sophomores and freshmen, they're not really ready to have these thoughts on their own, because all they're really doing is parroting their parents' ideas. I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in hearing what the seniors have to think, kids that have developed really their own ideas, because 2 years at the high school age really is a lot in terms of development of their own personal feelings and ideas. It's something I'm looking forward to doing next year, but I can tell you that at Cathedral, our principal, Dr. Kevin Calkins, has recently started a racial awareness task force that is hell-bent on eliminating these types of prejudicial and basically these negative ideas that are pervasive throughout this entire country.
So you bring up kind of an interesting point, talking about that the right age, the right time, how to handle these conversations. And it probably is correct in saying that, you know, a 14-year-old freshman that's already kind of overwhelmed with high school should not just get blasted in the face with be anti-race. Like, it's probably a lot of that is overwhelming. So how do you go about figuring out team building exercises and working these conversations in more naturally? Maybe we can hear from you, Coach Will Gray, the new Hoover High School football head coach. If you don't mind sharing some of your thoughts, and then I'd love to hear from some of the other coaches about maybe what are some good practices on how you work in sort of that character building naturally into a season.
For us over at Hoover, I mean, it's been a little difficult. Obviously, I started over there after, you know, the COVID-19 thing hit, so we haven't had a chance to really have face-to-face anything. One of the things that we did, we have our weekly Zoom meetings 3 times a week. So I had a chance to speak with each of our students, each of our players regarding the situation, you know, what different actions they could take, their feelings on it. I even asked them, you know, what do you want to do? You know, we had some kids that, you know, wanted to go and, you know, protest and things like that. And I encourage it, you know, as far as on the football side and what we can do. I kind of feel it's different for a Black 14-year-old male when you're talking about having that discussion, because for a Black 14-year-old male, more than likely, if they're from Southeast or other areas, City Heights, something like that, they've already been through this issue or they're starting to go through this issue. So for me, I would want them to be aware their first year of high school, their second year of high school, because it's something that when they're confronted with it or when they're faced with the situation, they have to know how to handle themselves in that situation, or it could be a devastating situation. So I'm a little bit on the other side of it where, you know, I have a, you know, 12 and 10-year-old son, and I talk to them now about it, you know, what the different things they should do, and just making sure they're aware of everything. And I do the same thing with the football team. That's what we've been doing. That's what our conversations have been. And my biggest thing is just making sure that they understand how to handle themselves if they're pulled over by the police, if they encounter a police officer. I'm not saying that all police officers are bad, but because of the few that are, you have to, or for me, it's you handle them all the same, which means with caution, and that's the way I teach it, and that's the way I've been telling the kids at the school.
Anyone else who's a head coach care to join in on that?
Well, yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit on the idea that the freshmen don't, you know, there's stuff we can learn from our youth. I was fortunate enough to run a freshman orientation camp at San Diego High School, and one of the things we were doing was a listening session on all these social issues, and we had a neat way of prompting them. We put these posters on the wall, because freshmen and young people aren't great at always communicating with words because of the awkwardness and all those things. But we put these posters up on the wall with different issues. It's just one word. It might say police. It might say teachers. It might say racism. And they might say things like school and things of that sort. So they would just write as a group a few phrases underneath each one of those topics. And it was a very interesting way to get the conversation started with them on their perceptions of things. And what was very eye-opening to us as camp counselors and teachers was the negative impression they had for authority figures, experiences they've had about things, which made them have a very mature opinion on things, because depending on what your experiences are, going through things in the inner city, you grow up really fast. You know, my first exposure to police, I might have been 12 years old. My mom sent me down to the mailbox for the mail to come. I'm sitting at the mailbox, me and my brother waiting for the mail to come. The police cruiser comes by, stops, gets out, and starts to interview us. He wants to take our picture. So just stay here. I'm gonna take your picture. My brother, he's a year older than me. He senses something was wrong. He runs, and the cop doesn't want him to run, but he runs, go gets my mom, and we find out that he's trying to put us in the gang portfolio to make us registered gang members for sitting by the mailbox waiting for my mom's check to come or whatever she was having us do. So, North County, 14-year-old, and you have opinion way towards authority and policing and things of that sort.
Yes, I agree.
Also with that gang, when they put you off in that's time. That's more time that they can get if you get into trouble. They can give you 5 to 8 more years on that too. So that's what a lot of people don't know about it. We talk about that.
Racial profiling. They just assumed that we were gang members because we were hanging out.
I'm just saying, like, we found that out this year. You know, I found it out this year. Coach Dunn does a good job of talking with the police and the judges about our kids and stuff. But I mean, I coach at Lincoln, so all our kids have been through this. You know, like they like you said, you did a conversation with the kids and they talked about what they think about the police. I tell my boys, police come talk to you, you're under 18, you don't say nothing. You say, I want to call my coach, and I'm gonna bring my lawyer, and we're coming down there right away. Like, we're not gonna deal with it. You don't need to say nothing that's gonna incriminate you, nothing. Yes, sir, not a problem. Can I call my coach? He will be right here. And all our coaches have talked about it. So we just don't, man, it sucks. Like, I've coached at the Jewish Academy, I've coached at Country Day, I've coached at La Jolla, and none of those kids have to deal with it. I know at La Jolla High, I mean, there's a few kids that get in trouble, but I mean, it's just a slap on the wrist. And then back to normal. But versus versus Lincoln in the Southeast, it's totally different. Totally different. I mean, I've had some kids that, you know, at La Jolla I knew they was gonna get in trouble, but somehow they never did.
Maybe we can talk about that perception a little bit. I think that it's something that, you know, Coach Carter, you and I talked about a little bit, is that everybody jumps all over every time there's a transfer to Lincoln. And it's, oh, that must be singularly athletically. There's no other reason that you would attend. Baz, I'm sure that you probably even get a little sick of the narrative of, oh, isn't this such a feel-good story that the inner city school winning basketball championships left and right, when you're like, no, I just have the greatest basketball coaches and teams we've put together. Marlon, I'm sure that you get people all the time. They're like, oh, isn't that nice? Like a black head coach at a white private, like these narratives and cliches and perceptions seems like where we're really caught. So what are the steps that coaches, athletes, and admin, like, what would you like to actually see happen in the next couple years, even if there's just the littlest baby steps? What can we do to actually start helping?
I don't really know if you can, because like, it's just like Marlon has won at Bishop's. I mean, he's won everywhere he's been at. I mean, he's won at Bishop's. I'm sure every coach in here has won. Will, you won at Kearney. I won everywhere I've been at. But, you know, it's only 6 black head coaches in football in San Diego, and they're more than qualified. But you got all the majority of the players, you know, or the majority of the assistant coaches are minority. Why are there not enough minority coaches? I mean, like, there's other minorities that should be head coaches. You know, I've turned down a couple of jobs, but in the same sense, I know it's other minority coaches that should be getting jobs. You can put out my resume and my knowledge against anybody in the world, and I know I can stand toe-to-toe with them. And it's not about me, but I'm just saying, like, the administrators take looks at it too, but it's all about friends, who you know. They're going to go off of that versus, is this guy, you know, qualified for the job? And that should never be You know, you just look at the college and the NFL. It's like that all over, and that sucks for minorities. I mean, look at the NFL. Majority of the players are over 75% of the players are black, minority coaches too. And you only have, can you name how many black coaches there are in the NFL? I mean, you got Mike Tomlin, you got the Miami Dolphins coach, you got San Diego Chargers.
Anthony Lynn.
Yeah. 32 teams, right? I mean,
So Marlon, maybe
it's sad.
talk to us, or Baz, you can talk to us about what is the conversations like amongst your coaching staff, or if you have other thoughts just on what are some of the baby steps you can take. I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off there.
Well, no, the huge step, it's kind of a baby step. It's like the first step of like Alcoholics Anonymous. I've heard this used is you got to admit you have a problem. And I think the issue we have in San Diego, you know, we're like the deep south of California, you know, and, you know, it's you travel to certain neighborhoods, you know, I can play a game with my kids and we try to count the people of color as we go to certain neighborhoods. We might go, you know, the whole shopping trip without finding but a couple. So because of the intense segregation that's inherent with San Diego, there's like an echo chamber of their own ideas bouncing around, and they really don't understand that there's an actual problem, even though they might be benefiting from the results of the problem, or they may think that they don't have prejudices until they get confronted with a stressful situation like that lady in Central Park. There's like an unconscious level of privilege that happens. But I think in San Diego especially, it's not so much in other cities, but in San Diego especially, there's a resistance to understanding that there is a problem of racial disparities. Because, you know, unfortunately, when you look at it, we're a very segregated society. There's certain schools like mine, and you know, the Hoover community is, I think, the most multicultural in San Diego, where you can get a melting pot of ideas and experiences. And I got white kids that play with black kids that play with Latino kids. And so as you share experiences, you become more tolerant. But if you happen to be in an area where you don't have those experiences, through no fault of your own, you don't understand that there's a problem. So I think the more people that can eloquently go out there and express a problem, and then from there take the next steps. And what's encouraging to me about this time is because we've all been stuck in our homes watching the news, we understand that there is a problem. And I think communication about defining that, I think, is kind of some of the first steps. Oh, you're on mute, bro.
Yeah, Coach, you're on mute. Yeah.
Okay, so it took no sports, a virus, you know, and everybody being still home for them to recognize it was a problem. I mean, that's pretty sad. So it's almost like the virus lesson in disguise, you know, because Castile, who got killed in Minnesota 3 years ago, the cop just walked free. They didn't even charge him. Right. 3 years ago, they just let him go free, you know. And when Cap was speaking on it, people were saying all this different stuff. Well, it's about the flag. It's about the flag. It was never about the flag. He came out and told you, but nobody wanted to listen. So it almost like this almost had to happen. And I hate to say, like, rest in peace, George Floyd, but it almost he had to die in order for people to see this. And that's sad for somebody to lose their life. 3.5 weeks prior to that, you know, Arbery got killed, you know. And then it's always when a person of color gets killed, it's, you know, well, he had this crime and this crime and this crime. I don't give a damn what crime it was. It's like murder is murder, you know. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's sad because when a white person goes to jail and he can blow up the world, it's going to be a great picture of him, and it's going to say, well, he had mental issues. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what it's going to say. Mm-hmm. And those are just real facts. And I have, you know, my son's are biracial, and some of my best friends are white. But truth is truth, you know, and people can't understand it. That's part of the problem too. So, like, how do we continue to put, like, it's almost like you got to push it in their face for them to understand it, you know, and not violently, but it's like you got to keep on posting, you got to keep on pushing it out there. You know, I know people are getting tired of it, but it's like, keep on pushing it because we're tired of it too. Like, this is over 400 years of this.
Yeah.
So this needs to stop.
I guess my question would be, if you continue to push it and you run into a kid or a parent and they go, well, that's not true, that's a lie, it's all made up stuff. How do you respond to that? Because it's tough in the moment, you don't want to say anything. I wouldn't want to say anything that would sort of tear down what everyone's trying to accomplish. So you have to kind of think about it. And what's something you would say to people like that would say, oh no, that's made up stuff, that's not real?
I think for me, like I just had this conversation with our quarterback's mom when she just said she really didn't understand it until she was out with the boys, with some of our players, and her son is 6'6", blonde hair.
Yeah.
She was out with him, and then people look at the kids like they're stealing something. They watch them every time they go down the store aisle. They do this and that. And she said it wasn't until she actually saw with her own eyes, and her own kid was being put in that group. So the question I ask is this: when your kid leaves your house, do you worry about your kid coming back home? Do you worry about your kid being shot? You don't worry about that. So, like me as a black man, I shouldn't, I worry about my boys right now, and I know they're not going to, and I worry about them because you just never know. You just never know. Like, but it's real, and I don't think you can really understand unless you are black, because like those things are happening, man. Like I was in Santee the other morning, and there was this 65 to 70-year-old lady, and as she was walking towards me, I had my hoodie on because it was kind of cold in the morning, and I took my hoodie off and I started smiling automatically, and I started smiling because I wanted her to feel comfortable, and I didn't think about it till after I left. I was like, why did I take my hoodie off and smile at her to make her feel comfortable? And she was just like, it's so sad what they did to George Floyd. And I said, man, you're all right. And she said, but the rioting is not okay. And I said, well, it's easy for you to say that the rioting is okay, but those are people that have been hurt. Those are people that are going through certain things. And for you to say it's not okay, that's being insensitive too, because like you're saying that our needs don't matter.
Right. I understand that. And I actually think that her looking at you as some sort of representative for the entire African-American people is also a bit racist in its own regard.
Exactly.
You're just a person.
I'm just walking.
You're going to Target or wherever you're going, and she looks at you and waits for you to smile at her or whatever, so that she feels comfortable, and then can ask you a question and tell you her opinion on the matter. That's really a really tough thing to fight against.
Right, and then you don't want to be disrespectful. So like she's an elderly lady, and I'm from Texas, and my mother's always taught me to be respectful to my elders. But in the same sense, I'm like, look, it all comes down to humanity. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Like you can't say you're a Christian or you love God and you have hate in your heart for people that that don't look like you.
And I think the whole thing with the looting and the rioting being like the number one. It seems like in certain communities, we know which ones, the Fox News communities, the rioting and the looting became the number one issue. Not the fact that, there are dead, there's a systemic problem of inequality and dead people and things of that sort. And not until this weekend, like Fox News reported some poll that in general, Americans by 2 to 1 care more about the injustice than they care about the looting. And so I think you're gonna start seeing people's ideas. So Fox is kind of getting off of that as their main talking point, but you can almost feed anything to the public and they will just ride with it. Same thing happened with Kaepernick. They made it about what it wasn't. They made it about the military and the flag when it had nothing to do with any of that. And so I think what the protests do when they go to a live feed or the protesters can interrupt the news cycle and get their voice out there, we can now set the dialogue. And set the conversation for where it actually needs to be. That's why we're making noise, and that's why we're out here socially disrupting and walking down the middle of the street. My kids are trained by me to follow the rules, follow the laws, and be very, they're obsessed with not breaking the law and kind of not being a threat to society. And the fact that we're out there protesting, walking down the middle of the street, jaywalking, doing the Cupid shuffle in the middle of an intersection. Why? To disrupt people's patterns and make them listen to a new dialogue. So peaceably assembling and protesting is the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. It's the first thing we should go to when we want to make a change and do things, that require a dramatic change. That's how this country was founded. through protests and riots and
Yes.
noise and violence. Unfortunately, of course, that's not the way to go. But when you're being oppressed, or you feel like there's things happening to you that you need to change or interrupt, you have to do something dramatic to let that be known. So hopefully these protests sustain.
Well, and Baz, I'll jump in saying, kind of going back to one of your comments about how San Diego has a issue even addressing that there is a problem. I will ask anybody and everybody out there to Google the name Oral Nunez, Oralnunis, Jamaican-born gentleman who was shot by the police several months ago here in San Diego, and pretty minimal coverage of that in the wake of this, and very few people jumping ahead to be like, hey, look, we had one here that we can use as a great example. And so I do thoroughly agree with you that. Coach Gray, do I have it correct that you are a military service veteran?
I am.
I would be curious your take a little bit on Baz brought in Kaepernick, and we had Howard Bannister, the head coach from Chula Vista High School, on a couple of days ago, and he sort of laid it out that, look, as a veteran, kneeling before the flag or protesting at the anthem is something that he feels strongly about, but that he also feels strongly that it is not for him to tell anybody else what to do. So starting with you, but open question to anybody, if players want to be part of this protest, if they want to sit during the anthem or hold up a fist or wear a shirt or anything like that, how should coaches go about handling that?
So I'll say this for me, and I can only speak for me and myself. I can't speak for other veterans and how they feel about it. But I did, do my stint, serve my country. But I will say this. If you turn your back to the flag during the national anthem, if you sit down during the national anthem, I'm not cool with that, me personally. But if you want to take a knee during the national anthem, I'm fine with that. There's nothing disrespectful for that. If you look at a lot of times, if you go back through the history and you look at soldiers and fallen soldiers and things like that, the military will actually, when they go to pay their respect, they actually take a knee at the graveyard, at the gravesite for that fallen soldier. So for me, when they said, it's disrespectful, things like that, me personally, I don't get it. You're doing it peacefully. You're doing it to make a statement about something. You're doing something different than the normal. I'm standing up. I'm going to take a knee to peacefully protest the things that I disagree with this country. And that's everyone's given right. Now, if you're talking about being disrespectful to the flag or to this country or things like that, now if you turn your back to the flag during the national anthem, I feel that's being disrespectful, because that's just, again, how I feel. But taking a knee, I think if that's how you feel, if that's what is going to take to garner change or to bring attention to what we're doing in a peaceful way, then take a knee. I will stand behind any one of my players that wanted to take a knee.
Coach, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because my brother served in the Army, and I have the utmost respect for the military and the flag, and I stand at attention whenever the national anthem is played or the Pledge of Allegiance. But if you look at Supreme Court cases like Texas versus Johnson, which have stated that flag burning is protected speech under the Constitution, the First Amendment, the people that are quick to throw shade at Kaepernick or anyone that wants to kneel are the same ones that are defending their Second Amendment rights to have firearms and saying that they're not going to have any change of that. So how can you pick and choose between amendments what is okay and what is not okay? Personally, I wouldn't kneel, but I don't have any problem with people furthering a cause or an issue peacefully by bringing attention to it. What I do have a problem with is when our elected officials try to denigrate those people and try to make it about that as opposed to the actual issue.
So go ahead, Coach.
I just have a question, and maybe you coaches can help me with it, because I've just been struggling with it. How can someone tell you how to feel when they're not listening to you? You know, like when you say, oh, you shouldn't, Martin Luther King, well, he didn't do this. And, I've seen a bunch of quotes with him being posted, but you still shot and killed him too.
Yeah.
Like, how can you say, well, the looting and the riot, the looting is wrong. I mean, I don't agree with nobody stealing stuff and nothing like that. Like, that's just me personally. I don't care what you do. But like when you tell someone not to riot, do this and that, it's been a ton. You go back and look at history just throughout this country. There's been a ton of rioting and looting when people don't get their way. So it's their way of being heard. So how can you tell someone what to feel, how to protest when you're not going through it and when you're not even open to listening to what's going on? So, I mean, I just want, maybe somebody can help me understand.
The original sin of this country, man, if it's not beat around the bush, it's just what this country is. It's based off of a society that favors some opinions, and we were 3/5 of a human being not too long ago.
Right.
We were property not too long ago. It's a tough thing for some people to hear, but you can change a law.
If that makes sense.
We had a Zoom call with my team, and one of my players who's in the AP history, as we were talking about all this stuff, pointed out that the Emancipation Proclamation came and you changed the law, but it didn't change people's mentalities. So just because at a federal level a law gets made, it takes a while for society to catch up, and only when that law is enforced could you maybe make a change in society. So I think in some people's minds, they still don't respect what an immigrant might have to say, what a Black person might have to say, what rights a gay person might feel like they deserve to have. It's a superiority complex. I think that's a sickness that needs to be eradicated.
Yes.
Coach Rojas
Right.
From True High Tech. Marlon, do you have something to say on that?
I was just saying, we are sitting here talking about basically, excuse my language, not getting our ass whooped and equality. That doesn't make sense to me. That's all we're asking for. Stop whooping us and killing us, and we want equality. And anybody in their right mindset, and somebody is saying no to that doesn't make sense to me at all. Someone is actually saying, no, we don't want you to be equal. We want to keep killing you and whooping you. That when you start complaining about kneeling and all that stuff, you're missing the whole issue. And it goes back to what Drew Brees said the other day. That was so disappointing for Drew Brees to say what he said. And it's not like his grandfather is the only grandfather who fought in the wars. Black people, we got grandfathers that fought in the war.
Absolutely.
And
you guys got the worst assignment. Their grandfathers got the worst assignments possible.
I'm telling you.
Turn back on and not be.
And it's just sad. Like we want equal rights. I don't want to feel uncomfortable every time the police get behind me, let alone pull me over. Like they get behind me and I'm nervous. My license is straight. My registration is straight. I got insurance, everything. Yeah, I work at Bishop's, but still, when I walk down the street in La Jolla, people are clenching their purses and locking their doors. They don't know that I work at Bishop's, and it doesn't matter. I'm still a Black man in America, and a white person will never feel the way we feel. I'm 47 years old, so when Rodney King got the beat down, I felt that. I was pissed. I was furious. I wanted to go loot and tear some stuff up just for the sake of it. So, like, I don't condemn the people for looting. I don't condemn the people for rioting. I don't condemn the people for protesting. There's a reason. There are people who are upset. I haven't seen so many skateboards in my life these last 12 days. Those kids are upset. A lot of Black kids don't skateboard. Those are white kids, young kids. They're pissed off. What are they pissed off about? Well, this is it. They're tired. Everyone is tired of this stuff. Everyone is tired of this crap. And I'm glad the youngsters are stepping up. Like I said earlier, So like a white father will never know how a black father feels, especially with sons. I got sons that's 25 and 21. And before they leave out the house, I got to tell them, hey man, don't put that hoodie on. It could be a Bishop's hoodie, a Beverly Hills hoodie. Hey, don't put that hoodie on. And that is sad because Christian, you probably would never have to talk to your son about that. Something simple as that. And that is what we call white privilege. Not
Actually,
because you have more money.
Marlon, if you'll allow me to jump in here, I kind of unintentionally stumbled upon during our first one of these conversations and talking with Jeff Harper Harris and realizing that in my high school experience, I was butted right up against being part of the problem and didn't even realize how close to it I was, because as a white upper middle class student attending La Jolla High School, we were Lincoln's reopening homecoming for their football season. They closed down for a couple of years to be fully renovated and redone. We got down to Lincoln at like noon. The drive from La Jolla to Lincoln does not take that long to warrant getting there at noon. They had cops walk us on campus, stick with us during the day, and they had like after the game, I can vividly remember, instead of going over to the sideline and doing like the interacting with our parents and whatever, we got the dub, they had us stay on the 50 with two cops who had their guns or their hands on their guns. And they said, you guys can talk to your parents when you get back home tonight. We have to stay here to prevent anybody from throwing stuff at you or getting crazy. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And now later I realized, holy hell, I should have been so mad at that situation and me being a part of that, because I was very much a part of the problem without even realizing it. Baz, you brought up a couple of things, and Coach Carter will get to you, but we haven't had a chance to hear from Coach Duran from High Tech High Chula Vista. And Baz, you brought up that in this American culture, it's the gay rights, it's African American. I know that the strong driving force behind this is Black Lives Matter, but here in San Diego, we've had ICE detention centers grabbing up Hispanic children. We've had all sorts of communities marginalized in different ways. So Coach Duran, I was hoping you could maybe share us just a little bit of an input about how this shouldn't just necessarily be white and Black trying to get together, but the Hispanic community is a big part of this, and all the different minorities are really a big part of coming together to express the collective desire to be better.
Yeah, I don't want to take away no attention from like the Black Lives Matter movement or anything like that, just because this is all one issue that ties in together. I mean, San Diego, you guys said it yourselves, San Diego is a red community. Like, don't get it confused. This is a very conservative city. And I really like what somebody, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said that we are the deep south of California. And it is, yeah, Coach Bass, see? So that's 100% true. I mean, personally, I grew up out here in East County. I'm from El Cajon. I went to El Cajon Valley High School, and I can't tell you the amount of times we had conflicts with schools like Santana, El Capitan, Granite Hills. I mean, the list goes on and on, unfortunately. But if we're talking about different nationalities here, it's really sad to see that the progress that we think we've made isn't really there. And it's a culmination of like representation. School. Where do kids see authority figures? Are they people of color? Are they not people of color? Who has direct influence on these kids? Like, we have to take a real consideration of what their communities look like. I mean, if you look below the 8 freeway, you got more communities of color than you do above the 8 freeway. Why is that? You had red districting lines zoned out in the 60s that prevented people from moving into certain neighborhoods. There's a reason why brown families and Black families in La Jolla, they were actually prevented to enter La Jolla. So I think these issues that we're having, they spawned 50 years ago, but they're engraved in our systems out here. And honestly, as a graduate student now, like, I've come to terms with like realizing that there are a lot of issues, but we want to make change happen now. Reality is that it's not going to happen, and it takes a course of decades, to be honest with you. But if we start trying to target and have these difficult conversations and teach students at a younger age, to be honest with you, I think that's the beginning of progress, and we could say that we're starting to move forward.
Okay, so let me throw a couple hypotheticals about how to move forward and get the room's reaction. One being the inclusion of some sort of like a Rooney rule, if you'll call it, some sort of drive to hire more diversely across the county in high school sports? Is that something that does any good, or is that an overcorrection? Or I see a little bit of a smile on your face. Like, am I being a white apologist for trying to put something in like that? Would you guys like to see a more diverse hiring practices and cultures around all sports in San Diego high school?
So I'll say this, and I kind of feel that even if we were to put something like that in place, I'm going to say, what good would it really do? All it means is that we're taking another step to have a minority interview for a position that ultimately, if they didn't want to hire them for, they wouldn't get hired for anyway. So, I mean, and again, when I speak, this is nobody else's opinion except mine. There's 100 and something schools in San Diego County. And I had this conversation with someone from Modern Day the other day. And my personal feeling is this: there's 20 schools out there, maybe more, but at least 20 schools that I don't care who you are, what you've done, what you've accomplished as a black male, they're not going to hire you. They're not going to hire you. Now, does that have to do with because of the parents of the kids that go to that school not backing a black head coach? There's 1,000 reasons to it, but I feel that there's about 20 schools out there that won't do it. There's another 20 schools out there that would entertain the idea, but I feel that they wouldn't pull the trigger, again, worried about backlash, whether it be the parents, the alumni association, whatever it may be. I feel that they wouldn't pull the trigger on it. And then you have that 20 to 30 schools that will, they want lead black candidates, which means, and I'm speaking football right now, your OC, your DC, we're fine with having them as on the coaching staff, which will eventually turn things around, lead the program to championships, things like that. But we're not okay with them having them as head coaches. And then we have another 30 schools at the bottom that is like, hey, we're open to everybody. Please interview, may the best candidate win. And this is my thing. I don't want to receive a position, or I don't want to get a job because of my skin color. I just want the fair, equal opportunity to apply for the position. And if I win it off my merits, then that's the position that I want. That's just me.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of it, but but there is a disparity. Right?
Absolutely.
How do you fix that? How do you make, that's what laws are for and the rules are for, to kind of help society along in the right direction. And, I think it's going to come from people's hearts, first and foremost, once the society changes. And we thought it was just about let all the old racists die off or retire, and then the new young people will come up and good things will happen. But, two of those four cops that helped to torture, kill George Floyd were rookies. They were brand new so it's not about a generational thing. I respect the attempt that things like affirmative action and quotas and the Rooney Rule are all about, but just like in the NFL, you have Eric Bieniemy and people like that who are just overqualified to run their own organization, but they won't get the opportunity. So it becomes like a dog and pony show. For some reason, in the basketball community, we've made a lot of progress on that front. Through our hard work and our excellence, there may be a different culture around football that prevents that from happening. I'm not a fan of handouts. I don't have an answer for you, Christian, but I'm not a fan of handouts. But I think we do have to figure out some way to compel these potential bad actors into doing the right thing.
Well, then my second kind of question along those lines of just formatting of high school sports is, would you guys like to see non-league schedules promote a chance for more of that interaction and have teams be encouraged? If you're south of the 8, play somebody north of the 8. If you're in have the Avocado League set up something with the Metro Mesa League where you guys are just kind of playing each other. Like, does something like that even start to dip your toes in the water of we had Marshawn Cherry on here tell us a story about the perception of when he was coaching at Mount Carmel, they were going to go play at Morse, and the coach was telling them, hey, go with a partner to the bathroom. Keep your backpacks, wear your backpacks the whole time. Keep all your stuff close to you. And Marshawn's sitting there like, I grew up like 4 blocks from here. Like, this isn't a bad place. So it seems like just even the chance to go sometimes into those environments can open eyes and start those conversations. So, does mandating, or not really mandating, but just encouraging more of that diverse play, is that something that even helps? Or again, am I just kind of flailing at sticks here?
I don't think it helps. Like me personally, I mean, I know we played, I'll give you a couple stories. We played some teams from the Avocado League last year, and our players were called it, N-word, monkeys. And we have to tell our kids ahead of time, look, you're going to be told, you're going to be called all these different things. They're going to try to make you fight one another. They're going to make you, they're going to call you all these different words just to get you to riled up and get you to do something stupid and then get you kicked out. So we have to tell our guys ahead of time, look, don't you respond to that. You winning when you don't do that. They can't athletically, they can't match up with us. But you guys have to understand, if you let them get inside your mind, if you let them call you that stuff and then you react, you're going to be out the game. Our players are going to be, we're going to probably end up losing the game. So those things happen. Also, when a player from North County transferred to our school last year, one of the coaches was sending, here's the reason why you don't want to go to Lincoln. All these things that happen in the hood, you don't want to do that. They're going to jump you. They're going to hurt you. Also, 2 years ago, we played a team from North County that came down to the playoffs, and the administration, supposedly, told the kids, the coaches told the kids, you don't want this is a game you don't want to come to after dark. You don't want to go to Lincoln after dark. It's like, are you serious? It's just, it gets frustrating. I can't speak for anybody else, but I know we've kind of turned things around here lately, and it's frustrating when you hear those type of things because you think, and this is the game of football, and it's a kid sport. I mean, any sport is basically a kid sport, but you should be able to play the game, have fun doing it, without people putting negative connotations on it or influencing it in the wrong way.
I think dialogue is always a good thing. Just being around different people, it takes the boogeyman factor out of it. And hopefully through some of, I grew up by Lincoln, 53rd and Imperial, went to Morse, and I ended up doing my junior college at Grossmont, which is, part of that East County kind of a negative culture for people of color a little bit. And so being able to bounce around those different communities, there is going to be some negative interactions when that crossover happens. For basketball, they'll have a USA night on the night that an inner city school comes through, which is like a code word for Make America Great night or something like that. And so it may not be overt, like an overt thing, but it's subtle and it's there, and you just kind of know it. And the crowd will chant things about, I can't pronounce that, like when people's names are fouled, So it's just real subtle things that happen if you're really paying attention. Only on the nights that the minority schools come. And then, but there's been great experiences. I made the effort to schedule a game, with and against Carlsbad, and I reach out to some North County coaches and try to expose my boys to as much as I can, good or bad, because anything you get out of a situation, you gotta learn from it. So, it's good to see the world and deal with the reality of the situation.
You blew my mind a little bit there, Baz. I got to pay more attention to student sections. Holy hell.
I saw you do that. Yeah.
I was like, my brain started melting out of my head that I've probably, again, been butted up against it, but not realized it. Damn.
Also, too, we made national news last year when we went to San Clemente.
I was going to tell you, you can put San Clemente on blast. They're a Southern Section school anyway. San Diego show.
Yeah, they beat us fair and square on the football field. We did not show up to play. They beat us fair and square on the football field. We'll take that. It was a good butt kicking they gave us. But also too, there's no place for that in any high school sport in the world. Period. There's no place for it. And it just baffles me because if you're a person, if you wouldn't want it to happen to your own kid, why would you treat somebody else like that? Think about it. Everybody loves their kids. And if it was happening to your kids, you wouldn't want it to happen to your kids. So why treat other people like that? This is my
Gentlemen, I really appreciate you guys all spending a ton of your time with us. I won't take up too much more. I'll just kind of say, you know, genuinely think that there's been some great ideas covered here. If any of you guys watching this, coaches, players, admin, anyone wants to follow up and pick any of these gentlemen's brains more, we'll leave all the contact information below the video, how you can find them on Twitter or Instagram. But if any of you guys have closing notes, I'd just like to usually go around the room and give one last opportunity for anyone to sort of get their thoughts out on all this. Marlon, if you don't mind, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I just say we need to communicate. We need to talk about these things and have an open mind and just get it out there all on the table. I mean, it's only going to get better from here. Like I said earlier, I'm very hyped about what I saw these past 10, 12 days with the youth. So looks promising.
Coach Rojas, if you don't mind.
Yeah, just piggyback off that, like change is gradual and change is uncomfortable, but it's a sign that something is moving towards in the right direction. I know personally for myself, one of the things that we've been trying to do is get the community of like students from Eastlake to take part in our summer ball program that we have in tandem with the head coach of Lincoln High School, Anthony Williams. So there is stuff that we can do as members of the greater San Diego community. So just looking forward to progressing at this point.
Marlon, I appreciate the background there, showing that racial equality has been achieved at Bishops as black and white joined together.
Very diverse.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not just one of your ring. Coach Fierro from Cathedral Catholic, the floor is yours.
I think everything's moving in the right direction. It's out there. It's impossible to not see, but there's still people that don't want to see it. There's still people that have their eyes closed. And if you encounter people that have their eyes closed, you got to try to open their eyes. Ask them questions. I mean, I like dialogue, and the thing is, I'll listen to anything pretty much. But when I hear things I don't agree with that I know are wrong, I'm going to ask questions, and hopefully those people that with their eyes closed can see what's really going on.
Coach Carter from Lincoln.
I just piggyback off what Coach just said. Just hold everyone accountable. Like if they're saying stuff that they shouldn't be saying, call them out on it. You know what I'm saying? Because no one likes to be called out on BS. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you put it out there, like, and they doing stuff they have no business doing, don't be afraid to say, hey man, that's not cool. That's not right. And then maybe you can help them grow as a person too.
Coach Gray.
I would definitely just say, talk to me before you judge me. And that should be, to me, a model that everybody should go by. Get to know the person before you judge the person. Don't look at their skin color to determine who they are or what they will or won't do. I know, personally, some of my best friends are white, and that never would have happened with me growing up in the Lincoln area in Bay Vista. I went out to Claremont High School, and I met some of my best friends out there. And without them getting to know me as a person, that same cycle of being judged for the color of my skin would have continued to happen. So I just, edge everybody or ask everybody to get to know the person before you judge that person.
Coach Baz, if you don't mind closing us out.
I just have to say, I feel like we're really lucky as coaches to have the attention of the boys that we have. There's a lot of organizations that want to make a change, but us, through our sport and our ability to influence lives that we do every day on this issue, we can be an example for them. Just the way we carry ourselves, the way we act off the court, the way we act on the court. And so I feel very fortunate that these fine men that we have here and the other coaches I know have an opportunity to kind of influence the future because we have their undivided attention for such big chunks of time.
Well, we thank you guys all for giving us your undivided attention for the past hour. I will end on just a little bit of a note of levity, and I will say that to prove just how tolerant the other side of the argument is, every one of these coaches has more or less been picked against or somehow stepped on toes by me during the last 4 years of this show, and yet they're all still willing to come on here and share their stories and be tolerant of idiots like me. So, gentlemen, we really, really appreciate you. I hope to see every one of your faces mask-free and in person the next time we all speak, because it sounds like we're getting some good news that sports are ever closer to coming back. So Let's hope, though, that means that just accelerates this conversation, and that being back in person around all of each other and around the student athletes and around the game gives us a chance to take all these high and mighty ideas that we're talking about right now and start to actually implement them to some societal change. So on behalf of Prep Insider and all the coaches here, thank you very much for this hour. Folks, we hope you encourage you to go check out all the other hours that we've had with coaches from around San Diego County. Certainly a lot of great ideas. Have a great day and stay safe.
God bless.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Everyone have a great day.
All right, you too.